somebody took a frame out and forgot to put it back. Anyways, so there's some things we're going to be looking for. Generally, the main part of the brood is going to be on the center, so that's probably where we'll find the queen if we find her, although I'm very bad at spotting queens, so we can all be on the lookout. Basically, there's a basketball-sized sphere in the center of this that is where the brood is. On the outside is more where the honey and the pollen are stored that they're using to feed the brood. So, we'll just kind of crack these open a little bit. I'm just going to go through it and kind of point out what I'm seeing. If you have any questions, feel free to do that. So, most beekeepers start wearing gloves, but it's really hard to pick up these frames with those leather gloves on. It's hard to pick up a queen. It's kind of hard to do everything with gloves on, so eventually you just learn to not use gloves. Okay, so let's see what's on this side that I'm showing you. So this is all, there's a little bit of pollen in the middle, there's a whole lot of nectar, and then this stuff up in the corner here, where it's really dark and it's tapped over, is honey. So the forager bees will go out, they'll collect nectar, bring it back, they give it to a different sister that's in the hive. That sister will go to these cells and basically spit the honey back into these cells. It gets mixed with some enzymes from her honey crop, and then over some time the nectar gets dehydrated. So they use one way that they dehydrate, there's a couple ways they do it. One thing is they will actually blow bubbles into the honey to evaporate the liquid out, and they also use wing motion. So they can unhinge their wings from their wing muscles and basically, well, I guess that's not for this, but that's for thermoregulating the hive. If the hive needs to be heated up, they can detach their wings from their wing muscles and vibrate, and that'll heat up the hive. Alright, let's see. So all the bees that you're seeing here are workers. Not seeing any drones. As we're looking for the queen, we're just looking for a bee that basically the abdomen is significantly longer and wider, a little bit wider than these workers. So she's just bigger. She might be marked, but she might not be. Yeah. So there are so many pests in honeybee hives. So as you may or may not know, honeybees are not at all native to the Americas. And so they get introduced to a lot of pests that they aren't really used to dealing with. So the major pest is the varroa mite. That's a really tiny mite that hooks onto the side of the adult bees and the developing bees. And it's partially bad because it's feeding on the bee itself, but it also is a vector for a lot of viruses. And so that's pretty detrimental. That's probably it's one of the biggest issues that bees are facing at all. I'm going to interrupt this for a second because there's a bee right here who's actually emerging out of her cell. So she's right here. I'm walking around a little bit, but so you can see it's kind of open. Here, I'll walk around right there. You see how she's in there? She's kind of chewing her way out. Right down here. So right down there, she's chewing her way out.
That's great.
I don't know if y'all can see it in the back. And the other thing that I'm seeing is, oh, where'd she go? You can tell bees that just newly emerged from their cells because they're super white and curly, and they also have kind of crinkled wings.
How is that not it doesn't sting you?
So it takes them a couple days to develop their stinger, actually. So right when they emerge, they're super cute and adorable, and they won't even hurt you. Baby bees. So my favorite part of being in a hive for the first time is getting to hold the frame and look at the bees up close. So does anybody want to hold the frame? Okay, so this is how you hold it. You want your fingers underneath like this. Make sure you have a good grip on it. You don't want to drop the frame when there's so many people around, obviously. You can flip it up like this if you want to look at the other side, but I would just hold it like this, and then you can get nice and close to it. So I'll give you this side first. And then that side. Cool. And then you can kind of pass it to each other just by grabbing the bottom. Alright, so I'm going to keep going through this hive and looking for the queen as you pass that around. And you can see in that frame that's passing around, there's actually, I think there's honey, there's definitely pollen, and there's some brood in the middle. You kind of get to see what all those cells look like. Oops.
Wait, there's this one that has like yellow.
Oh, yeah, so if you see yellow on the legs of the bee, that's pollen that they've collected. So they have little scooped out, you can see it on this bee right here. I don't know if you can see it that well. Basically, they have a little scooped out part on their back leg. It's called a corbicula, and they collect pollen in that area. So when they're out foraging, that's where they store their pollen, and then they bring it back to the hive. Let's see. Not seeing the queen here.
You truly are a thug.
Honestly, we have really nice bees in this apiary, so they're generally pretty docile. If anyone sees a large bee, so one of the secrets to queen spotting is to not look specifically for the bee, but to look for a difference. So you're looking for, you kind of step back, and you're just looking for something that sticks out. Sometimes the queen will have a retinue around her, which is basically a circle of worker bees that they just circle around her, and they're always checking on her. They're touching her with their antennae.
What's that clump over there?
It's just a group of bees, honestly. Yeah, she might be under there. It looks like they're all just depositing nectar, or maybe dehydrating it out a bit. Alright, go to the next couple a little quicker. Everybody okay with the frame over there? Sorry, it's okay. We have plenty of time still. Like I said, that was always my favorite part when I first started working with bees. Was just getting to look at them so close.
So where's the honey?
No one's done yet.
Today, no.
No? Not even handling this? Like all this stuff?
One thing to be careful of is when you pick it up here, sometimes there will be a bee there, so just kind of touch her lightly so she moves away. There's one on my hand.
Yeah.
No, she's okay. So I saw a little bit of honey on this first frame. I have not seen a lot besides that. Mostly they're eating that supplemented stuff that we give them. And they will store that in their honey frames, but there's just not a lot of it right now.
This is great.
So you can see here, I haven't cracked this one yet, so you can kind of see, I don't know if you all, yeah, you kind of can. In here, there's a whole bunch of propolis.
They're on the side too.
I can't move this. But if I crack it open,
It really
yeah.
is. I like it. I mean, it's different.
And you will smush bees when you're doing this, but
Do they get mad?
Yeah, so usually when they die, they release that alarm pheromone I was talking about. If you're just smushing a couple, it's generally not a big deal. If you start squishing a lot of bees, then they'll start to notice.
Does the smoke end up counteracting that from them too?
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
It happened.
Oh, that looks like a big one.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yep, that's the queen. Nice work.
So we.
Good job.
Oh, I see her.
So let me set the corner down a little bit. She's right here. So she's quite a bit bigger. A lot of beekeepers will actually mark their queen. They'll put a little dab of paint on her thorax just to make it easier to spot her when they're working through their colonies. So I see it over here.
That one right there? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Keep an eye on her. So once you find your queen, you want to be careful when you're putting it back in so you don't roll the queen or kill the queen.
Oh, yeah.
Quite a bit bigger. She's kind of high, so
I don't know why I thought it'd be bigger.
yeah, they're not. I mean, this one's kind of a little queen.
Are
They
her
definitely
wings
can get
small?
fatter.
Or are they just like it looks smaller because we're
They
adding
just
it?
look, yeah, exactly.
Okay, they're definitely big.
I get on my tippy toes and get over.
They definitely can get bigger than that, but they're not always.
Who spotted the
Whoa!
Good work.
Okay, this is kind of crazy. A bumblebee just.
I saw that.
There's a bumblebee here who's trying to rob this hive. So that happens a lot in bees. I want to put where is she?
These are jerks.
I want to put her back.
Is that it right there?
Oh, she's over here.
Is that it?
So, no, she's right there. Up here.
Is that?
Just gonna flip this.
What? What?
Oh, she's right there.
You guys found the queen?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
It's okay. Where'd she go? Oh, here.
They try to kill.
Actually,
Oh, okay, yeah.
really
Yeah,
wish
they
you
will
did.
try and kill pests or like invaders. Did everyone see the queen? I'm gonna put her away. Okay. So really, there's not much else to look at in the hive. I mean, we found all the parts. There's not really any. I didn't see any open brood. So one thing is that honeybees put. The queen bee will lay an egg in a cell, and that cell remains open through all the larval instars. And the worker bees will continuously feed the larvae with the capped cell open. But then once they're pre-pupa, so basically when they're ready to start pupating, they'll actually cap over the cell, and they don't feed them anymore after that until they emerge as adults.
Are you watching the bumblebee?
So, since there were 9 frames in here instead of 10, instead of leaving that huge gap, I'm going to try and space these out a little bit. We have another one out. I'll just go through these ones just to see if there's anything new.
If I can hear them, it'd be so fun.
The bees actually killed the bumblebees?
Yes, definitely.
Oh, nice.
Especially if they're trying to get into the hive. So those ones are robbing at the top. The bees probably aren't going to notice that too much.
Don't they like suffocate them? Like they like surround them?
So generally, there's a couple ways that bees can
Oh,
kind of
there's
get rid of
two.
pests. One way is just that they sting them or they just sort of wrestle them at the entrance. They will sometimes use propolis
That
to
guy's mad.
trap pests into a corner. They do that with, there's a pest of the honeybee called the small hive beetle. I'm surprised we haven't seen any because they're all over the place. Oh, actually, there's one right there. Let's see if I can grab it.
They're wrestling.
Anyways, sometimes they will mummify pests basically into a corner of the hive so that they're not taking their food or whatever the pests are doing. So as you can see on the outside, there's really not anything here. They haven't even built up comb. They just have that foundation really. But like I said, it's a pretty low resource time right now, so they're just not bringing that much stuff into the hives.
There's a bumblebee.
I was saying earlier, I don't really work in the apiary that much anymore, so I rarely get stung. You can talk to the folks that are working out in the back right now, and they are probably currently getting stung. So, it just depends. They're doing a really invasive hive assessment right now, where they're basically taking out every frame and taking a picture, looking at it, quantifying how much brood and how much honey there is. So, yeah. When you're more invasive in the hive, like we're just picking up 1 or 2 frames at a time, it's not as big a deal. If you start taking out every frame in the hive, then yeah, they get a little more antsy. And you might see that I'm kind of trying to put the frames back where they came from. Generally that's what you do because you want to keep that brood in the center. However, if you're trying to get them to fill the box up more, you might swap them around a little bit so they fill in the gaps. But right now, we're just try and put them right back where they came from. I wonder if these are... Just seeing if any of them were males, I could pick them up and show them to you, but... So that's kind of everything that's what there is in this hive. Is there any other questions about what you saw, honeybees, any other types of bees?